Welcome back to this week's Sister Scoop, where we're going to be covering all our Marvel news for this week, or at least our main big topics. And we're going to start right with Daredevil being in Secret Wars, although not for a big role.
Yeah, it's definitely interesting. I think one of the things that I was seeing online was his trainer actually posted something about, oh, hey, Daredevil's in the house and, we're training him for a new role in a movie. And now everybody's kind of like, oh my gosh, he's going to be in Doomsday and Secret Wars. Look, I love to play the detective as much as the next person, but to me, it's a little bit of a reach. First of all, they also say it's a new role. Daredevil isn't a new role. Of course, they're going to call him Daredevil. That's the role he's known for, but I don't
For
think
sure.
that's what they were referencing. And I also don't know that the studio wouldn't have already had them take it down if it was referencing something that he was going to do that had not been announced in the MCU.
Well, and honestly, he seems like a weird character with where he's at right now to bring him into such a big thing. Because he's also granted, by the time it happens, he will have had his show. But as of right now, he's not even established really fully in the MCU yet. So it is kind of awkward to think about it from this perspective. Maybe after, well, it'll be after April or part of May is over. Maybe that's a different kind of thought process. If anything, if he's gonna be in a movie, I see it being Spider-Man 4. That's the
Yeah.
most logical thing to me, not necessarily Secret Wars, where you have just so much happening. And that's not to say we're gonna have grounded guys. Obviously we're gonna have Cap and all these people who are more ground level fighters. But at the end of the day, I just maybe it's because he's coming over from Marvel and he isn't an established character. I just feel like that's batting with the big leagues when you haven't even gone to the minors yet.
Yeah, and I just feel like to your point, there's going to be so much going on that I don't know that we necessarily need to integrate him. At the same time, I understand wanting to do that and show
Yeah.
hey, he's here now, get ready, like Matt Murdock in the house, and I love that. Look, I've and you all know how excited I am for this character, but I also don't want to rush the entry. And to your point, maybe a lot is going to change after his show premieres in the spring, and it's going to really catapult him into a different stratosphere. That's entirely possible. I'm not taking that off the table, just as what you said.
Yeah.
But right now, even with this, piece of social content that people are pointing to, it just feels like a little bit of a stretch. Time will tell, but I'm not sure that I'm fully on the boat yet with this one.
That's fair. That's fair. Going to our next one, I think this was kind of a discussion actually after What If season 2 more than I didn't see it recently quite as much or I guess just to say I haven't seen it as much as I did after season 2, but Kahhori from What If possibly making it to live action again. I think this was a huge conversation especially at the end of season 2. She was the first original character brought into What If. She has no comic book precedence, and I think What If was one of those shows that we already weren't really sure what doors it could or could not be opening as far as live action as well. So I wouldn't be shocked if they made that jump over. I'd be intrigued because, and I say it all the time, Marvel struggles with superpowered beings. They haven't really done the ones they have so well, in my opinion. So I'd be intrigued to see how they handle somebody who pretty much embodies the power of the Tesseract.
Yeah, I think it is interesting because it was the head of Marvel TV talking about her again. And what was cool was he was talking about how she has started to make her debut actually in the comics. So, as you mentioned, she didn't have a comic precedence when she premiered or when she debuted in the show last season. But since then, they started including her in the comics, which is cool. And also, potentially in my head, a first step to getting her in the movies because now there's more stories to be told with her.
Yeah.
So, he basically said, and I'll quote here for a second, there's a future for the character. And he also just kind of left the door open and wasn't saying no, we're never going to include her. So I do think she's going to end up in the movies eventually or in live action eventually. Doesn't necessarily have to be a movie. And I'm excited for that. To your point, I hope they find a way to not make her super invincible or
Yeah.
take her on a weird storyline a la the Scarlet Witch that is kind of, diminishes her in any way because she is such a cool character. But to your point, she is challenging because of the level of power that she brings. The other thing that one of the articles that I was reading brought up was, well, she would have to be from a different universe because what
Yeah.
gave her powers, the Tesseract, we know how that played out in our universe, right? So she would have to be from a different universe where it played out almost exactly like it did in What If, or some variation of that. So they were saying, maybe in Doomsday or Secret Wars, it would make sense for her to premiere, since we are going to be having so many different universes kind of coming together. And I could totally see that. And then maybe she gets her own show, or she gets to show up in different movies. I don't know. But I really like the character. I think she's pretty cool. And I liked her even in this, third season, that I didn't like the season overall, but I thought she was a shining part in it. So I
Yeah.
would definitely like to see more of her for sure.
Yeah, I was glad she made a return. While a little jostling, like, it was just abrupt because
Yeah.
obviously we hadn't seen her since season 2. I am glad that she made that return, so I would like to see her in live action. I think she's a very interesting character. I will put a stake in the ground and say I hope it's not the version we saw in What If
Yeah.
exactly, just because I also think that muddies the waters where you're kind of like, okay, so if this is gonna be her, that means she knew that Peggy Carter and she knew, this storm and whatever. And I think with the direction What If ended up going, I think it's better to just not with
I
that.
agree. And then she also has the powers of the Watcher, which is like a whole nother leveling up on top of
I
that. So
blanked that out
agreed.
so hard. I
I know
forgot
you
that
did. I
happened.
know. So totally, yes. Bring her a Kahhori in, but not the one that we saw in What If. Someone who has a similar background or a similar storyline, that she gets the powers, but doesn't
Yeah.
go on that specific journey.
Yeah, I agree. This last one I am so excited to share because I at first I was like, when Taylor sent me the list, I was like, what is she talking about? And then it's just because I saw the news a couple days ago and I already reacted, so I didn't think about it. So Sebastian Stan had some interesting comments that he made. He was given a Captain America shield. I forget what it was at, like
Tokyo
it was
Comic Con.
okay. I was gonna say it was a
Yeah.
con. That's what I thought, and pretty much made the comment of, "Well, I'm not Captain America yet." Listen, I'm waiting for this to happen. Obviously, I love Sam and I have no hate towards Sam. I'm ready to watch his movie. I'm excited for it. But, in my heart of hearts, I am so ready to see Sebastian take on that mantle. I think it was hinted at so many times in the original Cap trilogy, and it hurts my heart a little that he didn't get it. I think in the future, if that's kind of what they set up, one, it makes me happy. It means Seb staying and Bucky staying in the MCU, but also like it is comic book precedence just as much as Sam is. I would like to see another super soldier take it back on. I think that's been people's complaints about Sam, and we haven't even seen the movie yet, but I think that's what everybody's questioning with Sam. I'm excited if this is true.
Yeah, it is interesting because I don't want Sam's run as Cap to be like short. Like Chris got a
Yeah.
full like 10 years. So then if you
Yeah.
think about that, like if Sam takes it for 10 years, Seb's going to be like approaching 50s, his 50s, or in his like early 50s. So it might not make sense. But one thing I did like in what I was reading, some of the articles were saying, we do have this vast multiverse. How cool would it be? And they set up this shot of the three Captain Americas together, Seb's version, Sam's version, and Chris's version, all fighting together in like a Secret Wars or something like that. So like those are the
True.
kinds of moments that like this could set up. And yes, I don't think he's going to necessarily like be the Cap of the main continuity. I just think right now they've gone with Sam, and based on the ages of the guys, I just don't think he's going to get like a full run. Seb's going to get a full run. I think they're going to hopefully give Sam a full run. But I do think that's an interesting possibility of a different universe. The other thing that the article was talking about was, we do have the Thunderbolts and there's going to be the Cap equivalent, right? And he
Right.
and John are going to have to duke it out for that because they both technically have a claim to being the Captain America of the Thunderbolts. So that's the other kind of maybe side route in, is if he's like that person for them. So there's a lot of opportunities. I personally don't think he's going to be like the Captain America that we all think of, because it has gone to Sam and that just is what it is. And I'm happy, like to your point, like I love Sam. I think Anthony Mackie's gonna absolutely kill it. So just because of where we are, I think it's gonna be some kind of side route in. But I would love to see Sam take it on and maybe even get a multiversal film of him being Cap in a whole different universe. That could be really cool, or a show or something like that. So lots of opportunity there, just not in the main continuity, because our guy Anthony Mackie, he's owning that.
I mean, I don't disagree. I think I always made it clear what my preference was. So I'm going to just say, well, I think you make good points and I don't necessarily disagree on the points. I'd still like to see Seb do it in the main continuity. I would like to see it. I do think, well, one, let's first put this out there. It's been 3 years already since he's actually become Captain America. So we are 3 years into that 10-year stint, technically speaking. So I know that sounds crazy. Wait, it's 2025. We're 4 years into his stint
Yeah.
already. That's disgusting. So to say that, and I say that's disgusting because I can't believe it's been 4 years. To say that, I mean, we're almost halfway through the fact, like, if you're going off of Chris Evans' timeline, you're almost halfway through. I'm not saying anything about that, but I am just pointing out, like, it's not 10 years from, like, this movie drop. It's started. We're, like, solidly into it already. I think it made sense for Bucky to not take it when he did now. He wasn't in the right place to, but I think if you're going to have him be the de facto leader of the Thunderbolts and kind of do some other things on the side that really build his character and build who he is now, I think it gives way to possibly letting him do that in the future. I also think, we'll have to see the Thunderbolts and how he plays roles and what he plays the role of really in that. But it did kind of seem like he's a little bit more into the governmental side than I think I would have anticipated Bucky being. If that's true, that could end up kind of opening that door if it is the main continuity. I would like it to be. We've invested a lot of time in this character, this specific one. But you know what? If it's a side quest there, I don't care. That's fine. But I'd like to see him finally have that shield. I'd like to see the Captain America version of his arm. I'd like to see it happen.
Yeah, that is a cool look. It's very cool.
Yeah, it is. But that's been this week's Sister Scoop. Join us again next week as we take on 3 more Marvel news topics that who knows what they're going to be right now, but we'll find out next week when they drop. And also be making sure you're keeping up with our podcast. We did just finish What If, so if you want to go check out that kind of stuff, go ahead. We did that all on our socials as well. But we'll see you guys next week. Bye.